Mira was 14 when her parents' divorce split her world in two. She moved between two homes, two different lives, never quite belonging fully to either one. At school, she smiled when people spoke to her. But at night, alone in whichever house she happened to be staying in that week, the loneliness felt heavier than anything she could explain to anyone. One evening, unable to sleep, Mira found an old notebook in her drawer. Without really knowing why, she picked up a pen and began to write. Not to a friend, not to a diary in the usual sense, but a letter addressed simply to Mira, from Mira. "I know today felt impossible," she wrote, "but you got through it. You always do.
Tomorrow, just try to smile once, even if it's small." She folded the letter, placed it under her pillow, and for the first time in weeks, fell asleep without crying. It became her secret ritual. Whenever the sadness grew too big, whenever no one else seemed to understand what she was going through, Mira wrote to herself. Sometimes the letters were short, just a few lines of comfort.
She never showed these letters to a single person. They were hers alone. A quiet space where she could be honest without fear of being judged, without needing anyone's permission to feel what she felt. Years passed. Mira grew older, the divorce became a distant memory, and the notebook filled with dozens of letters, each one a small piece of a girl teaching herself how to survive her hardest moments.
Then, in her final year of school, during a class assignment, students were asked to submit a personal piece of writing, anything meaningful to them. Mira, without fully thinking it through, submitted one of her old letters. Just one. The one she'd written on her worst night. Her teacher, Mrs. Ahmed, read it quietly after class ended. She sat there for a long moment, deeply moved by the raw honesty in a young girl's private words to herself. The next day, Mrs. Ahmed asked to speak with Mira privately.
"I don't say this lightly," she said, "but this is one of the most powerful pieces of writing I've read from a student. Have you ever thought about sharing your story properly to help others going through the same thing?" Mira hesitated. These letters were private, meant only for her. But she thought about all the other students who might be struggling silently, exactly as she once had, with no one to talk to, feeling like their pain was too messy or too much for anyone else to understand.
With Mrs. Ahmed's encouragement, Mira selected a few of her letters and shared them anonymously in the school's literary magazine, simply titled Letters to Myself. The response was immediate. Students she'd never spoken to approached her, not knowing it was her, saying those words felt like they'd been written exactly for them. Some admitted they'd started writing their own letters after reading hers. Mira never expected her quietest, most private habit to become something that helped so many others feel less alone.
Because here's the truth. Sometimes, before anyone else can understand us, we have to first learn how to speak kindly to ourselves. The words Mira once wrote only for her own survival ended up becoming exactly what someone else needed to hear. You never know. The comfort you give yourself in your hardest moments might one day become the comfort someone else desperately needs too.